Early in the course, I discussed optimizing the image. So before applying impression, there's a few steps that we've already talked about. And then after impression, you can optimize the outcome further by applying things like precision contrast, curves, precision detail, textures, washes, on and on. Glows. Gigapixel also tends to enhance brush strokes, plus it allows you to enlarge your photo further if you need to make a larger print with less chance of artifact. Let's continue with our flower basket oil painting type impression and see what we can do with it. Here, that same flower basket, we're at 200%, so I'm sure that you can see what I tend to see at 100%. Probably. At any rate, look at the degree of detail perhaps at this flower. Maybe we'll look over here and we'll look at these little yellow flowers. So first, here's a precision contrast, and you can see that there are some increases to micro, low, and medium, and a little decrease in high, because if I didn't do that, it just seemed to get too much contrast, out of control. If I bring up the micro contrast a little bit more, I start to get a little pixelation over on the edge, and I really didn't want that, but it does do a remarkable job on bringing out detail in the brush strokes. So somewhere a little more tame perhaps, so I don't see that pixelation on the edges. So let me show you the before and the after. Before and after. So we just see more distinction in the brush strokes. You can look at this area, perhaps the yellow flowers. Before and after. And then let's look at precision detail. And that really brings out a lot of intra-stroke and edge-to-edge brush stroke difference. I think maybe I'm getting a little pixelation, but again, I'm at 200%, so I'm kind of pixel peeping. But with both of those off versus both of those on, you can see a dramatic difference in areas of low contrast from before. Let me see if I can show you the split screen of the photograph versus the image. It almost becomes tapestry-like. And you can even use curves to emphasize the image, optimize it. Here, my pivot point is somewhere in the shadowy areas, because this is weighted towards the shadows in the flower basket. And you can look at this area, this area, this area, the leaves as well, and it's just, to me, dramatic. So I'd probably come in this precision detail, maybe turn that small down just a little. It may be a bit overdone, and that got rid of some of that pixelation. I think we're pretty good here. Yeah. So I am just trying to show you that even once you do the impression, you can improve on it with more effects, whether it's basic or curves, precision contrast, precision detail, to try to bring out the painterly effect, exaggerate it perhaps. So don't forget to do that. I want to check and make sure I have some texture going here. And I don't. So let's put on canvas one. I think it gives more dimension to the paint strokes too to see this. And so if you're posting online, then doing this gives a good idea. And you can have different versions, one that you do without the texture, one that you do with. But if you go to a print shop, you can say, hey, I want it printed on canvas, or I want it printed on something that looks like watercolor paper. There's some very good papers that emulate those textures. So by turning up precision, detail, and contrast, it will emphasize not only the brush strokes but also the texture. So you got to be careful with that. Find a happy medium. Maybe look in a planar area. Here, if I turn it up to 43, you see it's too heavy for my taste. Turning it down to 18 or 20 may be about right, especially in the painted areas. It's looking grand to me now. And then we just accept that back into Photoshop, save it out, and let's also look at what effect Gigapixel has on these brush strokes, because Gigapixel is an edge-strong enlarging program, and it can have a nice effect. We're going to use Gigapixel and see what happens. We're going to scale up. Let's just do 2x as an experiment. Let's try low resolution versus high resolution. I don't see any noise really to suppress. Let's turn that down and see what happens. And remove blur as a sharpening thing, and if we turn it up too high, we may get some pixelation, but right now it's looking pretty good. And let's just save that image to the source file, and then we'll compare the programs, the images. I've run Gigapixel twice. On the right is the original. In the center is the 2x through Gigapixel. And on the left is the 6x. And what I notice, and it's subtle, but I notice it, is that the 6x compared to the original seems to almost have more paint volume to it. So that's probably just because of the edge enhancement that happens, but I do prefer it. It's subtle, but to me it may be the difference between excellent and really good. It's up to you to judge. You may not see much difference, but try it out. So in conclusion, there's no doubt that this looks like an oil painting compared to what the original photograph was listless by comparison. This gives the impression this is something alive and perhaps responding to the wind and reflecting the changing light. And it's from a combination of the initial impression that I applied, but enhanced after the impression with precision contrast, precision detail, and a curved slayer. I think printing this on maybe luster paper that has a linen texture to it would give a very nice feeling, because any texture on the paper is going to catch the room light a little bit and make those paint strokes look even better. Of course, you could go with an actual print on canvas or one of the other textured papers and hope that you come out with something that looks very close to oils. Of course, true oils have true three-dimensionality to them, but if somebody's standing a little bit away, maybe they won't be able to tell.